Hello everyone, welcome. You may notice that I am sitting here in our Sukkah, right here outside of the courtyard. We are going to pause our continued study of Genesis. We'll pick up that again, what I hope, perhaps next week. But for now, I wanted to pause and to talk to you about this holiday of Sukkot. You can see here that I'm sitting in our Sukkah. I'll give you a little bit of a virtual tour around. You can see here the beautiful artwork that's on the walls. You'll notice the light here. And here, this is looking straight up. You'll see that it's covered by branches and some beautiful posters. This is a hut. It's a tent. It is here to celebrate a number of different things. But first, as a remembrance and a reminder of the huts that the Israelites lived in during their journeying and wandering in the 40 years of the desert. So, as a part of our study, we're going to read those few verses in the Bible that describe it from Leviticus chapter 23. We'll talk about the Sukkah itself, this structure, and then also other parts of the ritual of these days. So stay tuned, stay with us, and we'll continue with reading of these verses. Mark on the 15th day of the 7th month, when you have gathered in the yield of your land, you shall observe the festival of the Lord to last 7 days, a complete rest on the first day and a complete rest on the 8th day. On the first day you shall take the product of hadar trees, branches of palm trees, boughs of leafy trees, and willows of the brook, and you shall rejoice before the Lord your God 7 days. You shall observe it as a festival of the Lord for 7 days in the year. You shall observe it in the 7th month as a law for all time throughout the ages. You shall live in booths 7 days. All citizens in Israel shall live in booths. You shall live in booths 7 days. All citizens in Israel shall live in booths, in order that future generations may know that I made the Israelite people live in booths when I brought them out of the land of Egypt, I, the Lord, your God. So Moses declared to the Israelites the set times of the Lord. So, starting on Friday night, just a few nights ago, was the 15th of the 7th month. We can talk about at some other point how the Jewish calendar works, but trust me on this one. In the Jewish calendar, the 15th of the 7th month started on Friday evening, and it was the holiday of Sukkot. And so what we first learn about is that you should take the product of hadar trees, as we said, branches of palm trees, boughs of leafy trees, and willows of the brook. So let me introduce you to these species if you're not already familiar with them. We have 4 different species that we use in the celebration of the holiday. So we have what might be familiar to many of you, the etrog or the citron. You could smell it. It has a lovely tangy smell, a tart smell, if you will, very tart taste as well. And then we have our palm branch here. we have our hadas, our myrtle, and our what is called arava, our willows. And it is used, all four of them, kind of like so, in prayers. This, as we might remember, just from the context, is an agricultural holiday. Obviously, there are many ritual components that we celebrate nowadays. But remember, in its origin, it was agricultural. So this was the time, the beginning of the fall harvest, or really the end of the harvest, right? They would begin in the summertime, and this would be the final end of that harvest. And so you could imagine Israelites living in the land of Israel, or wherever they may be, they came and they took parts of the harvest and thanked God for the harvest. They thanked God for what they had. So take a look at these. You can see here they're neatly put into in a bundle here, and you'll hold them in one hand. And then often during the prayers of these days, you say special prayers, and you shake them around, up and down and left and right and all around in a circle. So I wanted to also then share some of the symbolism behind these various species. So there are a number of different interpretations, different ways of thinking about what each of these species might represent to us. But I wanted to choose for you one specific teaching about how each of these species reflects a part of the body. I think what's beautiful about this, because it talks about, or thinking about, how our entire body can be used in praise and in thanks to God. So the lulav, our palm tree, is seen, I don't know if you could tell, but it's kind of straight and pretty, it's erect. And so people think of it as a spine. The hadas here, the myrtle, if you can tell, people think of that as the eye. The arava, the willow, is symbolized by the mouth. You can see that. It's like right above the mouth. And then the etrog, the citron, is the heart. So that's one interpretation that I think is really beautiful. Being able to think about how we use our spine, our eyes, our mouth, and our heart in order to praise and worship God. Now I want to also talk about the symbolism of the sukkah itself, this temporary dwelling. You might be familiar with it either being called a booth, a hut, perhaps in your Bible readings. You might have been seeing it as a tabernacle as well. You'll see it scattered throughout your readings of the Bible. And that's because this was regularly used as within agriculture. It was kind of a hut that a farmer would place in the middle of their farm as they're doing the harvest, as we explained above. You could imagine on a hot day, or maybe a cold day like today, and you're finishing that harvest. Remember, we're talking about the Middle East here, so things are just a bit hotter now in late August or September, and now what is early October. But you'll be in the fields, you'll be picking whatever you need to pick, and then maybe you'll take a break, and so you'll go into your sukkah, into your booth, to sit down and to relax. Maybe you remember the book of Jonah. We could talk about the connections between the book of Jonah and the holiday of Sukkot, but at the end there in chapter 4 of the book of Jonah, he rests in a sukkah at the end there when he has already gone to the city of Nineveh and they have repented. So extra points if you remember that. But I wanted to talk about is this actual booth. What are the different characteristics or features of it that make it unique and I think interesting to study about and think about. So this is a temporary dwelling. The Jewish wisdom goes that you should use this temporary dwelling, kind of set aside where you usually live, and use this as your temporary dwelling for the 7 days, or what is the 8 days of the holiday. And so what that means is that people eat their meals in the sukkah. Some folks, the brave, though there's not many of them, they even sleep in the sukkah. Though I would suggest, with the temperature being 56 degrees currently, and it was in the mid-40s over the night, that's probably not safe to do so. But some folks do end up sleeping in the sukkah. And trying to provide, do all of your kind of regular everyday activities in the sukkah. So aside from meals, that might be hanging out in the sukkah, reading a book, studying scripture, all done in the sukkah as a way to kind of mark it as your temporary dwelling. A couple of unique characteristics about it. You'll notice that it's missing a fourth wall. It has one wall it shares the brick wall, and then you'll go on the other side, and it's got a third wall. And so that's another marker of it being a temporary structure. It doesn't need four walls like we would not want on our normal houses, but it only has three, as a reminder again of that temporary structure. And then if you look upwards, you can see the roof of this sukkah. You see the branches that cover it, and so that is known as schach, a very difficult Hebrew word to pronounce. The cover for the sukkah. So it's not a tarp. There's not a roof, but again, it's a temporary cover that is made out of plant material. So these are now I'm blanking on the word, but the bamboo. Yeah, these are bamboo. Sorry. So these are bamboo that our maintenance staff has collected from around our property and used it as a cover. So again, a reminder of just the agricultural nature of it, the temporary nature of it. You want the schach to cover in order so that there is both sunlight that can come in, but not too much sunlight. So kind of like I would say a 50-50 mix. You want to make sure that during the evening times when you look up, you can see the stars as well. So again, a reminder of kind of that temporary nature and temporary existence here in the sukkah. So what are we to make of all of this symbolism, all of these rituals? Obviously, every act that we do in religious life has its important, being important in and of itself, but it also is there to teach us something too. So what is these rituals teaching us? I'm folding my arms because it's a little cold outside. I think that's part of the nature of it. To feel that cold, or perhaps on a day of warmth, to feel that warmth. How often are we putting ourselves in a situation where we kind of feel the temporary nature of our existence? I think that's one of the big themes of the holiday, is that you have to leave your house, leave your permanent, comfortable home, and dwell, so to speak, in a place that's less permanent, in order that you realize what it's like to live in the elements. And I think that's such an important message nowadays, that we already feel constantly every single day. Each of us existing in these times of the coronavirus, we understand the restrictions. We understand what it feels like, the fragility of life. And that's what this holiday, Sukkot, is underscoring. Perhaps in years past, we need the holiday of Sukkot to kind of give us that jolt or that shock to say, hey, your life, what you might have seen as permanent, is actually temporary. This year, though, we don't really need that shock or jolt, because we already know how temporary it is. We already see all that we read on the news and all the concerning developments in our country and around the world. And so I think it's my prayer this year that we, even amidst the worry and the concern and realizing the kind of fickle or temporary or fleeting nature of our lives, we realize that there continues to be blessings. There continues to be the ability, for me, to enjoy the blessings of life, to wake up again on a new day, to be able to connect to you over the screen, albeit, but be able to share in this tradition, to be able to mark these days as holy, because that's what gives us strength. What gives us strength is this ability to say, today is a new day, today is a holy day, today I'm going to celebrate with me, with my loved ones, from afar, from my friends from afar as well. And so it's my blessing to you on these days that we, as we recognize the kind of the temporary and fleeting nature of life, we also hold on to what matters to us. So thank you again for joining, and we'll be back again next week for our weekly study.